Hi, it's Dan with Master of the Morning, so you own the day. Question: do you understand the significant power of love? The power of love to get us to do things that perhaps we would not normally do, knowing that love is a commitment, not a way of feeling. The story is told of a gentleman who volunteered to participate in an experiment where a huge truck came rumbling into his neighborhood and dropped off a 200-foot, 61-meter long steel I-beam in front of his home. And that steel I-beam, 200 feet long, was secured onto the ground. It did not shake, it did not wobble. The facilitator asked this gentleman to stand on one end of this 200-foot long steel I-beam. The facilitator stood at the other end, and he asked this gentleman, will you walk across this 200-foot long steel I-beam without touching the ground for $100? Would you? Obviously, the gentleman said yes. The facilitator upscaled this experiment, and they flew to Malaysia. And they went downtown Kuala Lumpur to the Petronas Towers, one of the tallest buildings in the world, 88 stories high. And these two twin towers, the Petronas Towers, are 190 feet apart. And they hired a giant crane to take the same 200-foot long steel I-beam, and they positioned this I-beam to connect the two towers, 190 feet apart. The facilitator then climbed to the top of one tower, and he yelled across and communicated to this gentleman on the other tower, will you now walk across this 200-foot long steel I-beam without touching the ground for a free $100 bill, minding you that the winds are usually 30 to 40 miles an hour, and the humidity is always so high that that beam would be slippery. Would you go across for $100? No. The facilitator asked the gentleman, will you come across for $1,000? Will you come across for $1 million? And then the facilitator grabbed his young 8-year-old beautiful daughter and took her to the edge of this tower and yelled across to the man, sent word across to the other tower, if you do not come across this 200-foot long steel I-beam to save your daughter, I will drop her to her death. Would you go across? Obviously, the gentleman went across. We all would. There are 3 lessons from this same scenario. The 3 whys that teach us what we really can do when the motivation is pure. When that steel I-beam was in front of this gentleman's home on the ground, obviously he walked across that 200-foot long steel I-beam, maybe even skipped, maybe even ran, maybe even did some gymnastics moves, because in that instance, in that scenario, money mattered most. When they took that 200-foot steel I-beam to the top of the Petronas Towers, obviously his personal safety mattered most. He would not go across for even $1 million. But when the life of his beautiful 8-year-old daughter was in jeopardy, more important to him than money, more important to him than his personal safety, was the love, the unconditional love and devotion and commitment he had to his little girl. What matters most is what lasts the longest. And when we can focus in on pure, unconditional love, loving ourselves, loving our neighbors as ourselves, forgiving our enemies and doing what we need to do, personally and professionally, by embracing the true definition and power of love, it's amazing how we will not only rise to the occasion to serve others, but when required and necessary, we will also rise to the occasion to save others. May I remind all of us that if this message resonates with you, please share it with family, with friends, with coworkers, with teammates, so that together, as we give and take unconditional love, we can prove true that anything is possible with love.